Hey guys, welcome back to TomGirl episode 9. We are here with former tennis player turned photographer Andrei Duman. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Picked this song for you because your adventures just inspired me to live out loud. So I thought this song sang played to your personality. Hey guys, welcome back. We have a great episode here for you today. I have one of my all-time favorite photographers, Andrei, here.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for coming. First of all, can you tell everybody where to follow you on social media?
Yeah, Facebook, just look up Duman Gallery, and Instagram, I think it's Duman Gallery, and Duman Gallery LA, and Twitter's Duman Gallery. So just look up last name and gallery, you'll find me.
Awesome. All right, so before I pulled a bunch of your photos. So for those people out there who aren't familiar with Andrei yet, and trust me, you're going to get really familiar, want to look at all this stuff after this. We'll show you some of those photos in just a little bit. But before we get there, it's fascinating to me too, because you have quite a history before finding photography, because you were a former semi-pro tennis player, investment banker, and you grew up in Romania, correct?
I know.
So tell me about your past.
I mean, I speak about this with my wife a few times. It feels like I've had 4 or 5 lives so far, because it feels like such a long time ago, but it's still my life. Born in Romania during communist times, and had that whole fun of dealing with communism and the fall down of the revolution and all of that funky stuff. And then my family moved to the UK, so I got involved with the whole British things and tennis, and I really got heavy into tennis. I started tennis when I was in Romania, actually, but really started taking a lot more, and just progressed with undergrad and masters, and then started tennis and kept playing and went around the world, and it's interesting.
So how long were you on the road playing tennis?
Quite a few years. Again, it wasn't fully professional because I was still at university, I was still in school, so I was traveling. My school actually compressed all my lessons and hours, so I could go and practice in the afternoons. On weekends I would be traveling around the country or going international tournaments. So that's really where my love of travel kind of started. And the thing about tennis as well, when you're really starting out and you're trying to get those first international points, you have to go to these really far off places. You don't go to the strong tournaments like Germany or France, or you have to go in the middle of bloody nowhere, like Syria. I went to Syria, I went to Brunei, I went to Tunisia, where you're hoping that the standard's going to be lower. There's still international tournaments and you can get your first few points. So I love that, because I was there on my own, and I was young and experiencing all these amazing cultures and things at a very young age. Was
one of those trips most memorable for you, or is there one that stands out in your mind?
The one in Syria. Again, given the horrors of what's happening right now, it's in some ways I'm kind of glad that I saw Damascus in its glory of how wonderful it was, and the bazaars and the food. I was a very picky eater, so I really basically starved when I was in Syria. But the smells were amazing, and pistachios. But I remember the hotel was right next to a mosque, and again, I wasn't too familiar with the religion per se, and I didn't get to sleep much. They wake you up in the morning, and, but it was wonderful. It's part of the culture. It's part of really feeling feeling that heartbeat of that country and the people. So I loved it.
So then, did you start doing some photography when you were on the road then? Is that when you first started, or was it not till later?
Well, I had 2 or 3 really big loves in my life, and that was travel, technology, and probably cars. So I was always fascinated with technology. What was the newest thing that was coming out? I always wanted to know every little nook and cranny of it. And part of that was also cameras. So my first ever photography device really that I was fascinated with was, and I've said this before, I'm sure people are bored about it, but it was a Sony Ericsson phone. And you can get this attachment that you stick on the side of it, and I remember distinctly, it was 0.8 of a megapixel. And it was revolutionary. It was like, and this was in 2000. Yeah, 99 or 2000, and it was just insane. First of all, how terrible the photos were, and you couldn't really tell what you were shooting, but it was just such an advancement. And as you do with technology, you just keep building on, and you buy the next thing that comes out, and a point and shoot that was 3.2 megapixels, and that was a huge leap. And you just keep buying new things, and the more I traveled, the more I was fascinated with trying to capture that. Especially I was traveling on my own a lot, so I had the time to shoot. So
then you, after tennis, and you went into investment banking?
Yes. I made a decision to quit tennis. Tennis is trying to make it as a pro is in my opinion the hardest individual sport to do it at. It's very lonely, a lot of traveling, it's very expensive. I mean, a lot of players, even that are outside of top 100, they barely break even, and you will never ever hear of them. And what do you do after you finish tennis when you're 27? You don't have an education, you don't have... So anyway, long story cut short is I wanted to go to school, and the schools in the UK are not anywhere near as good in terms of scholarships for sports like they are in the US. So I did my undergrad in economics, and then I did my master's in finance and investment, and my dad was an oil trader, so I kind of just followed that train into investment banking, and I started out in London. So
then tell me how you transitioned from that to the photography.
Well, I did investment banking for around 12 years. My last job was I was at UBS and I was on the world's largest trading floor, which was insane and scary and wonderful and all rolled up into one. Just the hustle and the bustle of everything, and people screaming, and it was great. But it's certainly very draining. So it's long hours. The products that we were dealing with were quite complex. It was the complex and hybrid equity derivative trade support team at UBS, and I got promoted to do sales trading, so I went to another team and to be a trader, and it was very draining, and I felt like I was losing my sense of who I really was in some ways. So my wife and I just looked at each other and said, what are we doing here? This is crazy. She's originally from LA, so for her it was very easy to come back. For me it was a little bit harder. It took about 9 months for me to
You settled in good now?
Yeah, and it was and we, again, I talk about this to with my wife, but it was literally a light bulb moment, because I was so wrapped up in the bustle and the hustle of investment banking and New York, and everyone's running and it's just crazy, whereas LA is so much more laid back, and the mentality of the people is very different, a lot more chilled out, and I was struggling with that. I was struggling with what I really wanted to do, and I remember it was December time, and I rented a car, and I had the roof down, and I was in flip-flops and a t-shirt, and I was like, going on PCH, and I was like, you know what? This is it. This
pretty
is
darn good out here, yeah.
And I haven't looked back. I mean, it's an amazing place, and there's no way I'd ever leave it.
So now, did the photography, because I think I read that part of that investment banking gave you your funds to be able to go travel and start taking these photos. Is that how it started, or how did you transition into photography?
Well, keep in mind that I just, like I mentioned before, I love traveling from a very young age. Last week I actually hit 80 countries in total. So I only know that because I'm doing a story, so I had to count them. Not that I'm checking off every time, but I always love to travel. And with investment banking, granted, you're not going to be necessarily a millionaire like everyone thinks. Money was decent, but equally importantly was the fact that, especially doing what I was doing when I was on the trading desk, they actually force you to take 2 weeks off at one time. The idea is, if you hide a trade, it will show up in those 2 weeks, as opposed to if you go for 1 week, you can still bury it somewhere. So the fact that you had to take 2 weeks off, you couldn't check your phone, you couldn't check your emails, it just gave me that luxury to go, you know what, I'm not going to go to Mexico, I'm going to go Papua New Guinea, because it's further away and I had more time. So that also helped. So I really started pushing my locations. And also with photography too, it's a very not inundated. There's a lot of amazing photographers out there, and everyone's shooting within reason fairly similar things. And I was very conscious of that from a very young age. I wanted to do something different, so I wanted to go to these extreme locations, something off the beaten path, something you don't really see very often, and try and bring that back. And that's why everything kind of worked out, that I could go to these far off places and do the research to shoot it.
It had to be quite a difference. So you're talking about the chaos of the floor and the trading, and I read one thing where you talked about being in, I think, a canoe or a boat waiting for the sun to rise in pure darkness.
Yeah.
Like, what contrasting lives right there.
It is, but they're both stressful in their own way, and they're both rewarding in their own ways as well. Everyone talks about how horrible banking is, and especially the investment banking side. Maybe it's a little bit less now, but you get different rewards when you're traveling and you meet these amazing people around the world. I met some amazing tribes. The particular location was Inle Lake. I went there specifically in Myanmar to Inle Lake to photograph the leg rowers. It's the only place in the world where they row with their legs. And it's just, I went there at 4:30 around 4:30 in the morning, pitch black. We got my poor guide had to come with us, pitch black on the lake, and you just wait for the sunrise to come up. And these guys are already rowing, they're already fishing. Little things like that. And again, not a regular tourist may not necessarily do that. You have to do the research to know the places, the time, how do you want to go about doing it, and that's how you can get the shot. There's no guarantee of it, but it gives you more flexibility to try and sort of get what you want.
And on that trip, didn't you travel 3 different ways? I think it was by plane, boat, car, like different options?
Yeah, because again, the main reason why I went to Myanmar was for the leg rows and also for the tattooed women. So the tattooed women is one of the only places in the world where they used to tattoo their faces. And it's this very remote section of Myanmar. It's all the way in the northeast. It's called the northwest. It's called the Chin State. So you have to get there by plane. Then you take a car and a bus, and then you go for like 2.5-hour boat ride up the river to get to this tiny little village. Really, it's not even a village. It's just a collection of 3 houses, and they're all sort of scattered around. So, again, you go to these places and you experience it, and you feel the pulse of the people, and you don't see that every day, you know. You have to make that effort to go and find it, because it is there. Well,
I pulled a few. I don't know how many you already showed, but we'll go kind of let's go through a few here, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about them. These are just ones that I selected that I mean, this guy has such great eyes.
That was actually a very tough shoot. So that's in Uganda. It's a tiny little we went for the gorilla hike, obviously, and that could be a hit or miss, because you can either they are all tagged, but you don't know where they are, so you have to sort of walk and have a radar that can sort of try and find them. So you can be 20 minutes walk, or it can be a 5-hour walk. We're around 2.5 hours, but we finally found them, and they were just running around like crazy. This little guy, so it was quite hard to shoot and no light, but again, an amazing experience to do the hike. Recommend it for everyone.
And I think this one was on your bucket list.
That was the main that was the main reason why I went to Sri Lanka. So again, I'm fascinated by the idea that certain things or certain people or certain places only exist in that one place. So again, these are the stilt fishermen of Sri Lanka, and as far as I know, that's the only place in the world where they fish this way. And it's only on this one beach in Sri Lanka. It's not around the whole island. So again, you have to drive all the way out there and fly, and that was an amazing experience to get waist deep with them. It was very cool.
All right, so where's this one?
That's also in Myanmar, right next to where the Chin village people are, and that temple is actually amazing because it has 90,000 tiny little statues of Buddhas, and there was hardly anyone there. So again, depending on when you go, you feel like you're the only one in these locations, because no one really travels to them. That was cool. It's a temple called Marawu.
Oh, it's just beautiful.
It's cool.
Here's just an action shot of you.
Yeah, that's we did so. The camera that I'm holding there, I'm shooting for phase 1. It's a 101 megapixel. It's the most advanced camera system in the world. It's an absolute beast of a camera. It's heavy and amazingly wonderful to sort of photograph, because you get images that not many people can really get. It's 101 megapixels. The processing power is phenomenal. And that was in Cuba. We went to Havana, one of the few boxing places where you can actually walk around and talk to the boxers and sort of get an idea of their lifestyle and their training rituals. And it was cool. It was very cool, for sure.
I love this one.
That's again, that's part of the same trip that I did. That's in Jodhpur, and this is the Blue City in Jodhpur in India. And it's just a maze of different shades of blue that you're just walking around. It feels like a completely different world. I mean, everything looks the same in some ways, but very different. And just having the contrast of, I was trying to find sort of people that had contrasting colors, so like red or yellow, as they were going by these blue buildings, and I managed to get the kid rolling down and that pink ball as well.
So they just happened to come through right as you're.
That's great. That one he was just running through.
Oh yeah, we talked about this one.
That was the
fisherman.
That was really cool.
Oh yeah, so this is your gallery.
Yeah. So I have a gallery in Woodland Hills. It's a unique gallery. Won Design of the Year actually last year, because it's
beautiful.
And I'd love to take credit for this, but my architects did an amazing job of the pieces are actually hanging off the trees themselves. So it feels like it's a very organic space, and I wanted it to be open and fluid, so people can walk by and sort of wherever they turn, it's something different. I didn't want to have any continuity to it. So it's always sort of, you never know what you're going to bump into, really. So it was a conscious decision.
Yeah, that's how I got you in here, because I randomly I walked in there because I saw one of your other photos in the mall across the street, and then came over and was and yeah, I loved the gallery. Like, it felt like I just felt like I had gotten transported into all these different, and like you said, each place I turned, it was like a different world that sucked me in, and the visuals were just so striking and stunning that it was
and it's a conscious decision as well on my end that I didn't want to have any LA images. In fact, there's only one or two. I think the one that the one you liked was the one in Manhattan Beach, and the other one that I have is the Disney Hall. But there's a conscious reason I don't want to show people necessarily something that they're familiar with. I want to show them something totally different, like the Stiltman. We get people all the time saying, we've never seen that before, we didn't know these people existed. And that's really my goal, is if I can help change someone's mind to go, oh, maybe I want to do that. Maybe don't be so scared of travel. I think there's a lot of people that are very worried of just going to the same place, and they'd rather stick to that. I want to push them outside of that.
Love that. This one, it took me a while to see what it really is, and then it's fascinating. So
this is actually probably one of my favorite images I've ever taken. I've been wanting to shoot this for about 6 years. It's a kind of a unique location in Hong Kong. It's a bit of a hike and a trek to try and find it, because it's just the whole Hong Kong is just so cluttered in terms of buildings. But I was on my back. This is at 2 in the morning. We had we were spending one night in Hong Kong, and then going off to India and then Sri Lanka. And I was jet lagged like crazy. I dragged my wife out. We ended up getting here around 2 in the morning. And I knew exactly how I wanted to frame it. I was on my back. I had the camera like right on my face and just shot straight up. So yeah, this is a complex building. And the sky, this is a long exposure, so it's around a 45-second exposure, and it's just all the light pollution that you get from the city. This is not, the sky isn't made to look that color. It just is. It is what it is.
Oh wow! So that's really how it looked too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
It's just everything's so bright.
Oh, this guy I love.
Yeah. So my first ever safari that I went on was went to Kenya and Masai Mara, and then we went to Tanzania, part of the whole Uganda trip as well. And this was the first time that I just recently bought a 500mm lens, so it's quite a big, hefty lens with a 1.4 extender, so I was getting around 620 or whatever the math is. This is the first set of images that I took. I noticed this tree as we were driving, and in Kenya you can sort of drive wherever you want. In Tanzania you have to stick to the roads. But I noticed this tree in the distance, and I saw something ruffling around a mile away. So I asked the driver to go up there, and it just happened to be a lioness that she just fed. We could tell that her belly was quite fat, but she made a kill in the middle of the night, and she was just resting away from the sun and away from the ants. And yeah, I got really lucky with this one. This again is one of my favorite, and it's a gallery favorite too. Yeah,
she looked like you said, she just looked so peaceful. Yeah, but then she's so powerful that I think the contrast of that is wonderful.
And you can get we got fairly close to her. I mean, she didn't really care. She ate, and she was belly full and just wanted to be left alone. But it's great to see that you could stare her in the eyes, and it's quite an amazing feeling. Again, something you don't get to do very, very often. So it's quite nice to connect with nature that way sometimes. Yeah, this is the Bagan temple complex in Myanmar, which again it's one of the most visited places in Myanmar. It's almost like you have to do it. And I believe that one was taken from. We didn't do this one from we did a balloon run in the morning, a sunrise balloon, which was amazing. But I think this was, you can hike up to some of these stupas, and you can just shoot straight down as the sun is setting on all the other ones, and getting that glare of the dust with the sun. So it's a fairly popular location to shoot, but it's still amazing to experience it, for sure.
Oh yeah, and then this one is my local one.
Yeah, and people again, it's been shot before. I mean, this is Manhattan Beach Pier. Many people have shot it previously. I actually made a mistake when I shot this image. That's the way it's coming out, the way that it has.
With the turquoise.
Yeah, the reason for it was shot with a for people that are familiar with photography, it's a 10-stop neutral density filter. So basically what it does, it allows me to keep my shutter open longer in complete daylight, where normally you just blow out the image. But that's the reason why the sides are a little bit more blown, and the reason why it's so turquoise in the middle is because underneath the pier is so dark. So keeping that exposure open brought out all the blue of the water. So this one and the lion are probably the two most favored pieces in the gallery, as well as the Hong Kong one, which we recently put up.
Yeah, I just love this one, and I have shot the pier down in Hermosa Beach.
Oh yeah,
before, just on my iPhone, amateur or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then when I saw this, I was like, oh, it's just so beautiful. I loved how your accident worked out perfectly, because I love it.
And it prints wonderful too. It's a very abstract piece almost in some ways, but it fits a lot of places.
Well, and I bet it fits a lot of California style homes too, where we're very modern and clean and sleek and
the
white.
And the way that we finish it too, we don't do any wood framing. It's just
go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted it to be super modern and super clean and efficient and just very easy to hang. So it's just face mounted to plexi and aluminum back and ready to hang. So it just keeps it nice and modern.
So for those of you like me who maybe don't know all these terms, so when you see it, it's really thin and it's really shiny, and it just is clean and sleek, and like you said, you don't have to worry about going and getting the frame or doing mounting or the border or anything. It's
all ready to go.
Yeah. All right. Now I think this one's sand.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh, story here. Last one, okay.
Story, yeah. This one was again, one of the main reasons why I wanted to go to Namibia was to find this exact location. This was made famous in a National Geographic front cover quite a few years back, and it grabbed me, and I wanted to see it. I wanted to feel it for myself. This is an old German diamond ghost town. It's in the southwest of Namibia called Kalmanskop, and it's just a deserted town. It used to be full of Germans that were looking for diamonds. Literally, you could find them in the sand as you're walking. And they ran out, and it just got deserted, and now the sand is just literally destroying this village. I mean, it's pulling apart door handles and door themselves. It's breaking windows. It's a very eerie place to shoot, but I spent 3 days there. And it's not a massive town, but I simply could not find this shot. I couldn't do it. I ended up finding the photographer. He apparently lives there. Found a photographer who shot it for Nat Geo, and he wouldn't tell me where it was. He was trying to keep it
secret, yeah.
And on the last day, right behind that door, it's, as you can see, there's a light coming through. There's a broken glass. I crawled on my belly, and I went through, and I walked all the way around and came back. And those are my footprints that you can see. And I thought, again, it was just another dead end. And I turned around, and that was it. Yeah. So then I just spent I came back that night, and I came back first thing in the morning to try and catch the different light. And it was better at sunset. So yeah, I was getting frustrated, to be honest.
But you didn't give up.
No, never give up. Never give up.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. I think that was the last of the photos. What are some of the challenges that you face through the years now, or lessons that you've learned?
You have to be, quite honestly, understand your gear. I think that's a big one. You have to understand the limitations of your gear, limitations of your lens. What can it do? You should have in your mind what you want to do with this image before you even take it, and then knowing what to do with your camera to try and capture it in the best way. So I think that's a big one. And just be open. You never know. A lot of times you go to a place to shoot at one particular location, and then while you're trying to find it or do something, it actually turns out that you shoot an even better shot for something that you weren't even expecting. So I think being open-minded about it, not being so necessarily gun-ho like I was on this one. There was nothing else to really shoot around there. It was just a desert. So look behind you, look to your left, look to your right. There might be something that's actually even better than what you originally had in mind. So being flexible with that is pretty crucial, and it makes it more fun too.
You had some quotes that stuck out for me.
I did?
You did, yeah. I'm just going to read one. We can talk about that. You said, I think we should all be exploring more, wanting to find out what is over that hill or in that canyon, even exploring our own environments in a new way. Yeah,
I think, again, I've been very fortunate that I've traveled a lot, and I probably always will travel, and I've seen some really cool stuff, and I think, and I could be wrong, but this is just my opinion, I think a lot of people are very scared of travel to some of the more remote places, and it's just a real shame, because there's so many amazing things out there to see, and if you can just let yourself go a little bit and just I guess just being a little bit less scared about what's out there. I know we live in really difficult times right now for multiple reasons, and obviously just be smart about it. You're not going to go somewhere where it's a war zone because there's something to shoot there, but it's just, go to Namibia, go to Indonesia, learn about the culture in Bali. It's absolutely staggering to see a different side of how people live and how people see life and what they cherish that's important. changes you. It makes you appreciate more of what you have. Makes you see people a little bit differently. And I think travel, you have to do it. You won't be able to just read a book about it. So I think that's what I meant by that. Just be a little bit more open-minded about, don't just go to the same location. Don't go to Florida 50 times, or don't go to San Diego. Vegas, I just got back from Vegas. I love Vegas. Vegas is a whole different story. But yeah, it's just be adventurous. Try and go somewhere different that you haven't been before every year. You might be surprised.
Is there some place that surprised you most?
Ooh, that's a good one. Actually, yeah. So I went to Bali as part of my trip to India and Sri Lanka. We stopped in Bali for 3 days, and I know 3 days wasn't really enough to feel the pulse and get a sense of what it was. So I was a little confused by it, because everyone talks about it as this amazing location. And about a month ago, I had an opportunity. I taught a workshop there for Phase 1 cameras. And I just saw it in a completely different light. I spent a little bit more time. I spoke to the people, learned about their culture, learned about what's important to them, and it really is a fascinating place. And it completely kind of blew my mind, because I had that previous connotation about what it was. Not that it was bad. I was a little bit mystified as to why the attraction was there. And now I fully get it. It's you have to experience it. But even then, going. And this is what another interesting point is: you can go to Bali and stay in these amazing hotels, and you never leave them, or you eat at those restaurants. You're not gonna feel it. You have to get on a moped or rent a car and just turn left and just keep going until there's no land left, and stop at a village and see if you can have food with them. They'll bring you in. Learn about their daughter. Learn about their dog. I mean, it's all those things that you can't prepare for, and that's the best. That's really how that's the love of travel that I have. So,
that's awesome. What other places are on your bucket list?
Well, the problem is as I tick off some of my bucket list, I had another 4 or 5. So it's just constantly growing. My bucket list: there's Komodo Island. I really want to do. Love to shoot the dragons in Komodo. Go to Papua New Guinea and shoot the Huli tribe would be amazing. The lemurs in Madagascar. I'd love to do Antarctica. I recently did Galapagos, so that was a tick off my bucket list, which was amazing. Love to go back to Greenland. Again, I've seen so many cool things, and now that I'm shooting on this camera, which is just the most incredible thing to photograph, because you get this detail like nowhere else. I almost want to go back to all the places I've been to redo them justice with the the capabilities that I have now and what I've learned in the past. So many places that I want to go back to and sort of do it justice.
Now, speaking of the Phase 1, I think I read you're doing an expedition with them, like a contest for people, or not a contest, but people can pay to go do this with you. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I've partnered up with Kensington Tours. I don't know how many people are familiar with them. They're an amazing custom luxury tour provider. So, for example, if you want to have dinner in the Sahara at midnight next to camels, they can do that for you. You want to get in a hot air balloon on your own, or with your loved one. It's a very customizable trip. Whatever you want to do, they will make it happen. But what we're doing is, for the first time in their history, they're doing photography workshops that I'm leading, and I've brought Phase 1 as an ambassador for them. They're providing the cameras. So the first one we're doing is actually Iceland in October. So we're leaving actually the 29th of September until the 9th of October. So we're traveling all the way in the south of Iceland and the west side of the island, and shooting on these amazing cameras that not many people really get to see. People really talk about them almost in hush whispers sometimes, because you don't get to see them. Not many people really shoot on them. They're incredibly expensive, but you get what you pay for. I
saw the photo of the scales, and I just got back from Mexico, and I was enthralled by the iguanas. So I was like, oh, I thought they would have done really good details on those.
Yeah, and I actually have a show. I did a show with the Galapagos at the G2 Gallery in Venice, and now that the work is done, I'm bringing it back to my gallery, which we're going to do a show in middle of September. But again, that's what blew my mind with this camera, because I was still trying to learn it. I came from 35mm, now I'm coming to medium format, and there's things you have to. It's a little bit different. It's just a little bit of a learning curve. But I remember distinctly when it was a winner for me. It was an image that I shot in the Galapagos. Didn't think anything of it. I went back to the boat and I was just going through my images, and I just so happened to, you can double click on the back of the back of the camera, and it zooms in at 100%. And I didn't even see it with my own eye when I was shooting the iguana, let alone later on. But there was about 5 or 6 flies that were actually eating one of the scales, and it started bleeding. But you get it in such detail that I can see the veins on its wing that I couldn't see with my naked eye when I was standing this far away from it. It blew my mind, the kind of resolution that this camera can produce. So it's amazing to shoot it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, real quick, you know what I wanted to ask?
Yes.
Tell people where they can, tell them about your website, where they can see your work, where they can purchase your work, gallery show, anything that you have that people can
we have one website. It's just andreiduman.com. So ANDREI. Everyone gets that confused. ANDREIDUM.com. So andreiduman.com is the main website that we have, and you can see where the gallery, you can find out openings and see all the work that I have there.
Wonderful.
So,
all right. Well, each week here we do also we pick a TomGirl of the week. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick here. We have a moment. So TomGirl of the week today, you can see her there, is UFC fighter Paige Van Zant. I picked her because I've always just loved her. I mean, she's badass and she's just super cute. So besides being the fighter, she has a fitness apparel line with Reebok, and currently right now this weekend, or not even this weekend, right today and tomorrow, she is riding motorcycles with Harley Davidson, and they're riding the motorcycles to the X Games. So you can follow her on her on her social media, so cool. And it's really cool to see.
Wow, goodness me.
Right? I know
that was a transformation.
Right?
Not expecting that.
Exactly. So we're picking her. So follow her social media, and you guys can see her fun little posts about the ride with Harley on the way to the X Games.
Very cool.
There we go. Okay, we have a couple more minutes. Just want to ask you maybe advice you have for people who want to get into photography or doing things like you do.
It's tough, but also very rewarding. Again, like I mentioned, we live in a digital. I think we live in. Let me go back a little bit. I think photography is, of all the arts, I think is the most difficult to necessarily appreciate. Just because there's been this massive explosion of everyone that can buy an SLR. Everyone can buy a really good camera now for $700. Back in the day, you had to spend $10,000. So I think that explosion has definitely made everyone feel like they can be a photographer as good as anyone else, as opposed to being a painter or being a sculptor that people think have a lot more skill that you have to take to partake in. Even in my gallery, sometimes we get people saying, I can take that photo on an iPhone, and that's okay. I love that challenge. Let's go to Africa and see which one you can get closer to the lion. But it's understand your gear. Again, I mentioned that before. It's really crucial to learn your gear inside out, know all what it can do, what it can't do, because that's gonna really be a huge factor in the field when you have to think really quickly. And that's going back, and love doing helicopter work, so I love aerials, is probably my favorite, where you have to be so reactive, you have to make tiny changes all the time. So if you don't know that gear, you're gonna miss the shot. Be open to traveling and trying understand what you're trying to capture with that image before you hit that shutter. What am I trying to say with this image? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but you should always have that message. And how does the gear for us newbies out there differ from your aerial photography to other things that you shoot? It's the same gear. I use this. It's just using it differently. I use the phase one, but again, because you're moving and the helicopter, so I shoot with the door off. So I'm literally hanging off the side of the helicopter, the door off, and I speak to the pilot literally like this, and I say, all right, let's pan really hard, because I want to shoot straight down. So when he's doing that, my altitude is constantly changing. The wind speed is crazy, so I have to fight all the time to keep my camera level. So you have to increase your ISO a little bit. You have to increase your shutter speed as opposed to being on a tripod when you're shooting landscape. So knowing that relationship between your aperture, ISO, and shutter is even more crucial when you're doing aerials, and that's why I love it. Have you had any accidents during this? Like any stories like that? Thank God, no. But no, I haven't lost, and that's the thing. A lot of people I've spoken to that have done helicopters, they've lost a lens cover, or they've lost a camera. No, thank God, I'm going up next week, but no, I haven't. I haven't lost anything. But again, I'm very very meticulous. So I do a lot of planning before I get in the helicopter. I know where all my stuff is. I know when I can change it. I tell the pilot to hover still, so I'm not panning when I'm switching anything. It just comes with being up there plenty of time and knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I love your work, so I can't wait for you to go through your bucket list so I can see all the next photos.
Coming. There's absolutely more coming.
That's great. Tell everybody one more time where they can follow you at.
Please follow me. AndreiDuman.com is the website, and go on social media and just look up Duman Gallery and you'll find me.
All right. Well, we're out of time here tonight, guys. We will see you again here next week where we will be talking to City Roots in Boots. We're going to get a little country next week. So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.